terms of book length, what is your range in terms of sellability?
We were joking about this at the last panel. The publisher's answer to everything is it depends. But it does depend. It depends very much on the discipline, on the market, on the book project. Some books are too long at 250 pages, and other books aren't long enough at 500. And it really depends on how the manuscript hangs together as a whole. These questions of readability, the size of the scope of the project. So
for a 250-page book, or let's call it a 300-page book, how much would that cost on the market, as a book?
It depends. There are a number of determining factors. So, for example, and this comes into, authors often come in saying, I want the paperback version of this out right away, and I have a vision of it speaking to everyone, and in reality, that book might only fit into a library market and a very niche group of scholars who are willing to buy that. There's questions of margin with regard to paperback versus hardcover that we have to factor in. There's other questions of format in terms of what's best suited to a given project, questions with regard to the amount of visual materials that are included that affect price dramatically. Color, for example, is extremely expensive. Black and white images are more affordable, but you also run into issues with permissions. There's so many variations that it's impossible to say on average what a given book is going to cost. So when we start saying things like a book that's longer is more expensive to produce than a shorter book, we're also starting to talk into the very high hundreds of numbers of pages. So we start to get concerned when something is running around sort of the 600-page mark. That's when we start saying, this is going to be a much more expensive book to produce than this 250. But there's so many variables in terms of that. A 250-page book with color photographs.
Without any color in it.
I'm still reluctant to give you a quote because it really is just so dependent on each individual project. Yeah.
That's something sort of at the end of the process that's more easily determinable.
Absolutely.
And the thing about touring grants, you guys, the publisher applies for the touring grants?
Yeah, on behalf of authors. Mm-hmm. So that can be a subsidy to travel costs in terms of either airfare or accommodation, and that's usually something that we'll work out with an author based on having a discussion about what would be sort of a perfect place or an opportunity for the author and what works in terms of our budgets and our schedules and so on. But yeah, it is something that we'll do on their behalf.